Namaste. Welcome to Youth TV Show. In today's episode, we are featuring Leadership Academy's Career Counseling Center. The topic for today's career counseling is vocational education and its solution to youth unemployment. To moderate today's session, we have with us Ms. DALJIT RAO, Managing Director of Vision Planet, Australia. The counselor for the topic is Ms. REBEKKA GEX FABRY, Project Manager at Swiss Hotel Association, Switzerland.
Today's topic is quite essential and critical for Nepal. It's vocational education, how vocational education actually draws the best out of any country in terms of employment, in terms of economic value, and how it is important to Nepal. And I have with me today the pleasure of meeting Ms. REBEKKA, who comes from the Swiss Hotel Association. And I think today's session you will find, and the viewers will find it most informative, because it's where we're going to be addressing some very key elements of the vocational sector education. Can you tell the audience as to what is Swiss?
When talking about the Swiss education system, I think one peculiar aspect to highlight is that 2/3 of the pupils choose to do a vocational education after they graduate at high school, which is kind of special because in other countries it's the other way around, right? You choose usually an academic path. And this is actually has a very good reputation, this system, and you are always later on during your career, you can always choose to add an academic career or to do your studies. So this is very nice. You can switch from one system to another in the perspective of lifelong education. Is very much appreciated in this system actually is that is one of the key factors of low unemployment. And that is why nowadays, in the context of the crisis since 2008, many countries come and seek advice in our country because they noticed the importance of vocational education.
With vocational education, I mean, I being myself an academic, a university lecturer, as well as, I guess, serving on the board of Education Adelaide for the VET providers, what we have found is that even in the university system, they are now, even in Australia, recognising the deficiency of the theoretical application and learning in a university environment as to a vocational sector environment. And I guess from the Swiss perspective, and having had the exposure of working within the Swiss system and education, how do you see the value of Swiss education coming into Nepal, and how would it contribute to the economy and to these young people?
I think I can make a big link, especially when talking about tourism and the hospitality sector. Switzerland is very well known for its tourism industry and the qualitative service in the tourism industry. And tourism industry in Nepal is very, very important. So I think this is where Switzerland can contribute in Nepal, which means through education, because Nepal is envisioned to create leaders in the tourism industry. And that's where we can contribute with our knowledge in tourism education. That's where we try, and that's why we also have an affiliate school here in Kathmandu, which is GATE, and where we really try to rise the level of education in the tourism and hospitality sector.
Which I think is absolutely a huge benefit to Nepal, to have Swiss come into Nepal and establish the teachings, the curriculum, the skills-based learning. Primarily coming back to Australia as well, and given my experience in both the vocational sector and the university sector, we have recognised, even in the university and more so, is that there's an absolute need for us to have theoretical learning combined with, I guess, skills-based learning. And at university now they're starting to put them out into the industry, as you Swiss are very well known for. And so they're doing it either in the form of virtual learning or a simulation in classroom as well. Coming back to the Swiss, and here you touched on a very earlier comment on tourism, which I think is enormous, and the various sectors of learning. You yourself speak a lot of languages. How many do you speak?
I once learned 8 languages, but I'm fluent in 6 languages.
And what are they?
I was raised bilingual, French and German, and then at school, of course, I learned English. And I learned Italian, and then I was intrigued to learn Spanish, and I studied in Brazil as well, so I learned Portuguese. I was also intrigued about learning Arabic and Russian, but those languages, I don't practice them anymore, so that's why I would not claim that I speak them.
Incredible. How do you see the connections of those languages in bridging the gap from a cultural perspective?
I am a very much cultural interested person, and I am convinced that if you want to understand a little bit of a culture, you need to understand a little bit of the language, because language has so many signs about a culture. The way you say things reveals a lot about a culture.
Okay, we'll go in the...
So for me, language is the biggest part of a culture.
Rebekka, the Swiss learning is a dual system. Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
I think what is special about vocational education in Switzerland is, as you say, it's a dual system. Dual means if you take 1 week, 5 days, then the apprentice goes to school 2 days and then applies directly what it learned at school during 3 days at work. So it is employed, but at the same time it follows a theoretical education. And this actually accounts, this is what is very good in this system, is that what you learn is really useful at work. And so there is a direct feedback between theoretical education and the world of work. This is very important and crucial, and you can be sure that what you learn can be applied later on.
So it's application to what you've learned in the classroom.
Absolutely.
That you go out. And therefore, I guess the essence or the importance of industry participation, isn't it? And involvement, which Swiss does very well. I know that one of the Swiss institutions that I represented in Australia as well, I mean, we worked with 500 hotels throughout the world. And it was important because it was a development of the students, that whatever they learnt in class, they moved out to practice what they've learnt in class. And that's, I think, in terms of Nepal, there is, from what I understand, and the assessment or the research that I've done a little bit on, and is that Nepal is in need of skills-based learning. And it's something that we've often talked about. And it's not just hotels, but it's other sectors of the skills-based learning. And that could be from plumbing to electricians to mechanical side of fixing of things. And Australia and Germany are the two leaders of vocational education. And if I recall, I think we have 106 programs in one vocational national qualification sector, because Australia recognised that here is the island sitting alone, needs to have, how do we thrive on the economy, was to actually skill up, as Swiss was the first master of it. And I think that it's a great thing for Nepal to come in and have the Swiss come in, and slowly that it can diversify into other skills-based learning to get that economy going and flourishing of employment for the youth. How do you see, from your Swiss perspective, that Nepal should, I guess, launch into the next phase of these particular phases of tourism? What would they have? What sort of teaching would we have to go through?
I am already very glad that Nepal already focused on particular type of tourism. First of all, ecotourism is crucial for Nepal because that's what Nepal is able to offer, like no other country. Like it's the amazing countryside and landscape and mountains, and it's crucial to preserve them. And people need to be aware how important it is to preserve that treasure that were offered to Nepal. So education starts with consciousness, and that's where ecotourism starts. And then, as you said, it can develop various other forms of tourism, spiritual tourism, adventure tourism. I know Nepal is very big also in adventure tourism, and that requires other types or slightly different types of education. All tourism types have one thing in common, is that the skills. It's really the hands-on skills that is very peculiar to the tourism sector. You really need dedicated people who know how to work in this sector.
And I know that to the outside Western world, they see Nepal as one of those havens for meditation because the Himalayas are there, and spiritual tourism that brings in loads of tourism out of from countries, neighbouring countries. What can be done to improve that area and element and aspect of tourism from the cultural aspect as well? I know that, maybe I'm touching a bit on the delicate side here, but you walk into the airport and check in at immigration, it's as the outside world we say, okay, that's Nepal, we take that, but then for hours on end when you're standing and waiting for your bags and going through that carousel and trying to pick your bags up and then go through immigration, you think, can we do this? Can we bring in the Swiss training and improve the facilities of that? So,
and maybe one important aspect when talking about education doesn't stop after 3 years of university or college. It doesn't stop there. You need to see it in the perspective of lifelong education. So there is continuous education, which becomes more and more popular, tertiary education, where you can always specialize in order to improve the situation, as you say.
To conclude, I guess what I'm in a nutshell, Swiss is rigor, Swiss is attention to detail, Swiss is quality, and Swiss is team-spirited. Correct?
I would support all of them. Yes, exactly. And sometimes even too detailed.
Too detailed. But it's fantastic, and I'd like to now conclude and open it up to the audience for questions that they may have.
We talked a lot about Australia, Germany, and Swiss. They are already the developed countries, but we are still underdeveloped. So would it be effective to implement same kind of vocational education in Nepal that is existing in Swiss?
You need to look at the principles behind and why it is successful, and then think and figure out how this principle, why it is successful, can be applied to your situation. You can't compare two systems, but you can look what is the good thing about it and how that fits into your context.
And I guess in addition to what Rebekka is saying, is that if you students want to go overseas, you need to internationalize in Nepal. Therefore, for your growth, it's essential that the country's teaching is internationalized. It's mapped with international education systems so that you're able to come through without a great difficulty and prosper.
We will continue with the career counseling discussion after a short break. Welcome back. You are at the Career Counseling Center at Youth TV Show.
How does the vocational education system add up with the existing cultural system of Nepal?
Some countries, actually in most of the countries, vocational education is perceived as something, let's say, lower than an academic career. And actually, I have to say, in my country, we also have universities, but we also have universities of applied sciences. And only in recent years, those universities of applied sciences were risen to the same status as academic universities because we really started to realize the importance of vocational education and that it's actually at the same level of academic career. My people, let's say, have always been aware of the importance, but the importance even increased, the awareness even increased, and since 2008, since the crisis, there's no doubt that people are convinced that vocational education is exactly as important as any other career path.
In Australia also, vocational education doesn't just stop at a certificate level. You've got engineers that come in and do vocational training up to the advanced diploma level. You've got dental training in the vocational sector. These are applied science, applied methodology to theory learning and practical application. So I guess from a cultural perspective, in Nepal, I know people perceive as vocational education as inferior to an academic qualification when it's the reverse. And in our countries, people get very high salaries, very good respect and command for having completed vocational education because they are more skillable and they're able to just land themselves a job and then specialize in their field. Personally, I come from an Indian heritage, and even when I first walked into the hotels through the back door, having no idea what a hotel industry was, I know my father said, "Oh look, what are you doing in there?" But as he saw me aspire and succeed in this industry of vocational sector, I became the first female general manager in Australasia at a young age of 30. Which university is going to do that? Because I had skills and theory based.
In addition to what you say, I would say that it's a matter of time until people are convinced that vocational education really delivers what the market needs. When a hotel manager will see that a young graduate from a vocational college, from a professional college, can deliver excellent work, he is convinced. And that will change the mentality slowly, person by person, but it will change the perception also of vocational education over time.
And I guess to add on from Rebekka's comment is that in order for Nepal to prosper, it needs to look at vocational education as also at the equivalence of university education.
I would like to know that most of the women in Nepal are not engaged in job activities or any employment opportunity, and how this vocational education can be more fruitful to those women.
If they receive education in a vocational system, they are able to work. Let's say they not only have something in their brain, but they don't know how to apply it, but they also gain credibility in what they do because they can do it.
Culturally also, if the partners or the husbands or the families are willing to let the spouse go into education field, vocational education, it's not going to be that difficult for them. They'll integrate better, easier, because as they learn the theory concepts, they will apply. And they will be far more better and happier and employable than sitting at home. So it's really opening your mind to the education of vocational sector.
I plan on being a destination developer, as I am currently doing bachelor's in travel and tourism management. So is it possible to pursue career in that sector through vocational education or not?
Absolutely. It's really how entrepreneurial can you become? And there are courses in specific field of that, destination tourism, inbound tourism, areas of the teachings. So how long is a piece of string, as you said, and how far and wide can you dream? And you will achieve it.
How do you cope effectively with the stress and anxiety related with career exploration?
That's a very good question, because not often students have a clear pathway of thinking as to the area of education that they should go to. They're not focused enough in the field of their expertise. You've come out of a vocational education sector where you're fully equipped with skills. Now you need to move on to learning management concepts as well. And what I often say, for example, I mean, as most of you people are from the hotel industry here, if you're wanting to specialize in destination marketing, go and do specifically Masters of Destination Marketing. If you're wanting rooms division or marketing, go and do Masters of Marketing. If you're looking for food and beverage, do Masters in MICE. I mean, these are very specific areas that will complement what you have studied in a vocational sector. But often the advice, I agree, there aren't academics to give you those advice. And I guess, Vision Planet Australia, we're all academics. We can all offer you that advice here in Nepal.
It is an undeniable truth that Nepal has got enormous possibilities in tourism sector. And the thing is, we only know we have got the possibilities and we are not doing or implementing something else. And so that we are lagging behind. What a particular thing you would like to suggest so that we can also pave our way forward and walk ahead in this tourism sector?
That's a very good question, because from what I understand is that 70% of the population in Nepal is the youth population. And how can the economy thrive? Skill up, vocational education. Open those systems and processes, allowing household people to come into the very, even at the lower end of the education, but at least you know that you're able to work out there and prosper. If you prosper, the country prospers. And I guess your education system would have to be considered. The policies, is Nepal serious about keeping the youth within Nepal and keeping you employed? So that comes back now to, I guess, the skills of the industry sector, as you've touched on tourism, to the Swiss.
I really agree. If we talk about tourism and improving education, then we tackle the very core topic of vocational education. Being able to deploy the skills that you need, and if not the hospitality sector, which other sector is such a hands-on industry? So you see the link between vocational education, tourism, prosperity of a country, competitiveness.
And people associate, I think you're right earlier on, people associate vocational education as it's a mediocre education. Well, it isn't. Because you are the people who will make this country prosper through your education, through your skilling and your capabilities of vocational education.
Education system of Nepal is very academic and traditional. So how can the vocational education system be accepted here in Nepal?
To me, this is clear. If you learn something, let's say you learn how to bake bread. If you know how to do it, you gain credibility. If you study it on the paper, I put you some flour, some water in front of you. You know in theory how to do it, but you have never learned actually how to do it. I will not believe that you are able to bake bread. So you gain credibility when you learn these practical aspects, and then you convince the person. Your bread will taste good.
Ms. Rebekka, thank you very much for your time, and it has been very informative. I think in closing, I'd like to leave some food for thought. And that is, youth employment is something that is necessary and important for this country to thrive. And for the young leaders who are in front of me, you are looking outwards now to see how you can prosper, given that you have just gone through either vocational education or the university teaching. I'd like to say that education never ceases. You are all entrepreneurs. Go out there. And I have a very famous saying, dream big and make it happen. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
I would like to thank our guest, Ms. REBEKKA GEX FABRY, for sharing her valuable experience with our students and addressing their queries. I would also like to thank Ms. DALJIT RAO for heading today's session. If you are a high school student or a college graduate, You can visit our Leadership Academy's Career Counseling Center for guidance and counseling on further education. For registration, call us at 01-4257-250. Our mobile number is 986-11-55900. You can also visit us at facebook.com/leadershipacademykTM. We will be back next week with a new episode on Youth TV Show. Namaste.